mandate, but as far as if it's not a reoffender, if it is somebody who is not bylaw has not dealt with on numerous occasions, we do try to give them benefit of the doubt, which is typically done through either just a general notice or a warning ticket. Again, trying to give a little flexibility. One of the new ticketing processes that council adopted there in December, we're looking at the bylaw offense notices. So as you can see, the number of bylaw offense notices issued in the first quarter were at 291. And again, predominantly on the parking side, we do stick to the bylaw offense notices. That does simplify as far as being able to serve. Same thing with short-term rentals. Anybody who's out of town owners, this gave that flexibility for us to be able to mail them that notice and have a little bit more tools in our back pocket as far as for the enforcement side. As you can see, we're number of tickets paid, we're at 162, about 55.7%. The remaining of those would be in collections, so they'll be sent off to collections for recouping some of those costs, which brings us to a total revenue at this point of the paid offense notices. We're looking at about $14,000. Obviously, we'd like that number to be higher as far as the collections. However, we are at the will of the collections agencies and their processes for that side of things. Just to kind of highlight for council, overall, we had discussed that we're wanting to kind of get a grander idea as far as what the number of tickets under the new bylaw offense notice process has been. And so to date, from implementation until the end of the first quarter there, we're looking at 335 overall for offense notices under the new ticketing system. As a quick, a couple little notes there for you guys, we've got bylaw enforcement have towed 3 vehicles during the first quarter. We did tow more previously again in December there. However, we wanted to kind of give you guys first quarter stats, and then we do continue to tow vehicles that are parked illegally, abandoned, or just if there's any challenges associated with where they're located. Typically, we do try to give obviously the flexibility to people, leave a notice on the window first, and give them a chance to try to remove the vehicle themselves. However, that doesn't always end up working out. The total of 833 C-click fixes that were submitted for the first quarter, and that would be for the all aspects, any concerns the public have submitted. We're sitting at 810 of those were assigned specifically bylaw compliance. So as you can imagine, that is quite a significant workload, and this is again, I just want to preface, this is what is being submitted, and then tracking some of our internal ones as well. However, this does not include the proactive. If we're working on some of these larger files, it is a little bit harder to track those ones because they do end up spanning between first quarter, second quarter, and so it is a little bit harder to quantify that number. However, this is more of the day-to-day operation of bylaw and kind of overall workload on the day-to-day side, not necessarily the larger enforcement files. The traffic and highway, so again, the parking side of enforcement, it did account for 77.4% of the overall enforcement files for bylaw. So community has said they would like parking addressed. We have been trying to prioritize that and try to help reel in some of the parking concerns the public have raised. Overall, we've seen a 23% increase in calls for service compared to last year. And then on a positive note, as Mr. Mayor would announce at the last council meeting there, we were lucky enough to hire an additional bylaw officer. As we previously discussed, one of our other bylaw officers decided to take the lateral movement over to our building department. And so we're thankfully able to backfill that position with an extremely qualified bylaw officer. And I hope we can bring him in here at the next council meeting to give an official introduction. But we're happy to have him, and he'll be a great resource for us. And then just down at the bottom, we have a few more stats. I do want to apologize. I did notice it after it was published. It was brought to my attention. We forgot to update one of the 2021 on the right chart there. You can see it says 21, 2022. It is accurate data. That was my mistake. I didn't get a chance to update just the header there. However, the data is accurate as far as overall numbers. So this kind of gives you a general comparison as far as previous years and where we're at. And then we have overall service levels of where we're at on staffing side. So as we have bylaw service or bylaw compliance has been brought over to the Development Services Department. We did that last year, I believe. And so with that, we now have our overall structure. Development Services, we have our Director, Paul Simon. I manage the Development Services Department, and we have a bylaw compliance supervisor, Joe Marcoffio. And then we do have 2 bylaw officers that are on there full time. And then our bylaw clerical duties are just in the process of being redistributed within the development services department on with our development services clerks as well. So overall service levels, that's kind of where we're at with staffing. And yeah, I'm here if you guys have any questions.
Council, any questions? Councillor Lando.
Yeah, Your Worship, thank you. I have a few questions. The first one's related to the bylaw offense notices, the new ticketing system. I'm just wondering what your sort of impression of its impact is. Is it getting results? Is it solving recurring specific issues that were not resolvable under the new thing? Is it generally getting the results you'd like to see? And for example, is that does it work good for parking or for zoning or for licensing or that kind of stuff? So I'm just looking to see some general feedback on its effectiveness so far.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Lando. Yeah, absolutely. We are noticing a difference. The process for serving, as we've discussed before, it is very different compared to municipal ticketing, obviously. We do predominantly try to leverage the bylaw offense notices on parking because, again, it's one of those ones where you can leave it on a windshield and it's a little bit more of that standard process that people are used to. Whereas the municipal ticketing, obviously, we had that significant limitation. Same thing with the short-term rentals on the out-of-towners. It gave us that flexibility to be able to try to actually start working towards that. With now having access to the provincial database, this will overall start helping that whole process. Overall, we do find that it is a good system. There are obviously flaws, limitations on overall fine amounts. So comparatively speaking, on some of the fines under the municipal ticketing versus bylaw offense notice, bylaw offense notice is capped at 500, where municipal ticket has been raised up to 3,000. So we do notice the challenge of that. However, overall, the ability to be able to serve through the mail, leave on the vehicles, it has improved the overall ability to try to work to gain compliance, as well as there is a different process for disputing, which allows the screening officer to kind of work with the individual to try to find a different resolve, or if they have concerns on issues with how the ticket was served, how the ticket was issued in error, things like that. It gives a little bit more flexibility with in-house instead of going through the court system, which can drag out and take a much longer period. But different tools for different jobs is kind of how we see it. We don't issue only bylaw offense notices. It is predominantly. However, it is at officer's discretion depending on the situation and if they're able to personally serve the individual.
Thank you. Your Worship, yeah. A separate question that's sort of related. Regarding sorry, I'm just taking here. Parking has historically been the runaway #1 category for sources of complaints for bylaws, way above other categories. City has, I believe, the terms of parking management plan scheduled or budgeted on the current financial plan for 2026. My question would be, when that process is completed, how much, I know there's a lot of objectives in a parking management plan, including parking, revenue, et cetera, but how much overlap would you feel there would be with reducing the complaints from residents about parking issues if that was in place, or how connected would you say these two, that plan and this sort of on the ground issues that we're seeing from residents are?
Through your worship, great question. At this point, it would be a bit of a speculation as far as what we would see outcome-wise, changes as far as how that specific plan would be able to relieve any of these issues. At this point, we do need to, we would love to prioritize that plan to get that in place, because that will be the driving factor for determining if we need to have paid parking in certain areas or parking permits, that type of process. However, at this point, because it is a little bit further down the line there, we don't necessarily have all of that data at this time to decide or determine if that would have significant real world at this time. But we, with Director Black's team here, we do hope that once that plan is drafted and we can get a little further into it, that'll help determine priorities on where we need to focus on potentially some higher parking enforcement or implement those type of systems. So, but as far as the specifics on how that plan would affect the parking currently, I would have to defer to Director Black.
I know it's it's difficult through the chair. I know it's a difficult one to nail down. Just curious, and it's going to be speculation for sure.
Thank you, Councillor. The outcome of this study is going to be multi-pronged. It will have visitor concerns, it will have resident concerns, and look at the carrying capacity of parking versus the demand. I personally believe that much of our parking concerns are from us, the locals. So we need to be able to document those sorts of things, and then that will drive many of the opportunities, the carrots, the sticks for us to implement throughout the city to create a balanced parking plan, and how council would then have the input to say, this district is all commercial, or commercial core, for instance, would all be paid parking. But you get a fob or a tag for your rear view mirror, which means you get 2 hours of free parking if you're a local. And so there's multiple opportunities here to create some very cool opportunities, and I'm using opportunities quite a lot here, but I do view these as opportunities and not constraints. And the revenue opportunity is actually quite significant. And between the ticket writing that the bylaw team is doing now, and the opportunity to create some parking revenue, I think we can then offset at least one of those FTEs through return of investment.
Paul?
Your worship, no real follow-up, just a quick comment and just one last unrelated question to that one. And thank you to Mr. Black and Mr. Gibbs for the response. Yeah, certainly as we go through that process, especially for retail community, there's on the one side, I would like to not have people parking all day in front of my business and resolving those issues. And on the other hand, getting that turnover and worrying about costs and all that stuff. So obviously that's going to be part of the planning process and finding the right solutions for Rebel. So the last thing is unrelated, and this is a question about graffiti. Anecdotally, I've been hearing a bit more. I don't know what category graffiti complaint would fall under the current reporting, but I'm sort of seeing a bit more sort of proliferation in some areas that is not being resolved. I know we do have bylaws because I've been there in the past when the city's gone through an initiative to deal with issues and get it sort of a bit more under control. And I'm wondering, is that included in the report, or are you not receiving complaints, or how's that categorized? And does the city operate only on a complaints-based process or a proactive process on graffiti proliferation?
Your worship, so we do incorporate the graffiti portion of it and fall under our other categories. I couldn't give you the exact numbers as far as how many complaints are received specifically regarding graffiti. I can say I don't believe it is too many we received at this point. The graffiti enforcement on graffiti can be quite challenging. Obviously, when it's a vacant building, it's a little bit easier to have the conversation with the property owners. Most property or business owners would be the ones that would be affected by it. It is a bit of a balancing act of penalizing the property owner of the business to pay for the cover up of that type of thing. However, it is something we deal with on a complaint basis. Council policy was a B2, I believe, for bylaw enforcement is what drives the determining what type of topics would be proactive, which would be reactive. So it is one of those on the complaint basis side of things. However, I can say staff have been having internal conversations about some of those concerns regarding graffiti, because we have seen it in town. And it is on our list of items that we do need to start looking a little further into, and we have reached out to the RCMP to try to start working with them a little bit on that side of it as well.
Right, thank you. Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions for Mr. Gibb? Councillor Stigners?
Yes, thank you so much for providing this. It's really good to see, and hopefully it'll help guide us in the future with some of our decision-making process when it comes to policies. My question is, when we're looking at say for example, the traffic, like the parking and the illegal camping, a lot of people would speculate and say that, illegal or, part of the issue with parking is illegal camping on the streets. So maybe, when we're looking at these policies, like taking a deeper dive, providing a little bit more, information as to like what we're seeing on the ground. I think Councilor Orlando was kind of alluding to that. And just getting more details and more information and more data to help us, be better informed when we're making these decisions and helping guide us in our policy making procedures. And I think the same holds true for all of these, the short-term rentals, the traffics, the municipal parks. What exactly are we seeing? Is it people, is it a tent pitched down at Centennial Fields, or is it, people, moving around in vans? Is it, so that's kind of my comment. But again, thank you so much for the report. It's great to see this, and I look forward to seeing it in the future.
Great. Councilor Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mayor. Through the chair. This is kind of a question, more of a statement though, but I'll try to frame it appropriately. There are multiple websites that tell anybody who's reading them where they can get away with parking in our community. Is there a way that the city can have these removed? Or can I suggest that maybe signage go up in these areas to limit the amount of enforcement we need?
Through your worship, Councilor Cherry, if you would like to share, after the meeting here, absolutely we can look into it. As far as removing on private websites, that's can be quite challenging. We could have a conversation with our IT department, but I'm confident that will be a bit of a challenge. It is public websites, we would have challenges with that. However, if you would like to share those locations, we can definitely have the conversation, just see if that is something where we would be able to put up additional signage to try to restrict those things.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thanks again, Mr. Cook. Appreciate the input. We're going to move on to communications. 12A Revelstoke Curling Club report, the year-end report. Ms. Donato, the Moncrief are here, so Ms. Donato, we'll leave it to you. Do you want to do a brief overview?
Sure, Your Worship. So just in front of you, you have the year-end report that the Curling Club has provided us with. So just want to recognize and acknowledge that they've had a pretty good year this year. They've expanded a lot of their programming, increased their membership, and supported many different community groups. They've kind of outlined what they've done. In conjunction with that, they've also invested in some equipment in the facility, and they've done a lot of upgrades to the facility on their own in consultation with the city. So it's been a really good working relationship. They've got 2 new directors this year, Karen Mulder and Brady Blake. So if you have any questions, I did invite the president, Cody Moncrief, so he is in the audience. If you have any questions for him, please feel free.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Donato. Any questions, Council?
Rather than a question, if I can, we bring Cody up here to maybe
Absolutely.
add any information he'd like to?
Sure, how's this?
Welcome, Cody. Thanks for coming. Anything that you would like to supplement Mr. Donato's report with?
Yeah, well, I think, again, in front of you, you'll have a lot of our highlights. So probably, first off, I'd like to thank Mayor and Council and the city. I think we're very fortunate as a curling club and as a community with the lease agreement that we have in place. It allows us to operate sustainably and in a way that we can provide curling and recreation opportunities at a very affordable rate for the community, which again, getting as many people as possible into any sort of recreation is obviously a positive thing. I know there's a lot of communities elsewhere that there's a whole bunch of different situations, whether it's the club themselves own the facility or there's management, professional management in place. There's a whole bunch of different ways that things are organized. But obviously, like I said, I think we're very fortunate in what we have here currently. And I know that might change in the future as we start looking at new arenas or multi-sport facilities. But I guess just to acknowledge there's a lot of different ways we can manage things to make it most opportune for everybody. So again, and we just re-signed that lease for the upcoming 5 years. So thanks again for that. Yeah, just high level highlights. I think we're pretty much past double for our membership compared to pre-pandemic levels. So we've seen a really nice increase in membership. I think a lot of that is just timing. I think globally there's a lot of interest in curling. It's starting to be I've heard it's the second most popular Winter Olympic sport in terms of viewership. So we're seeing just in terms of global interest that curling is starting to increase, and you start to see countries that you're not used to seeing in the international competitions. So I think we're in a great position to continue to increase our membership and interest in curling, and just get more and more people involved. And but right now, basically, some of our restraints would just be everything right now is run through volunteers. So it takes people to expand. And so just trying to encourage and recognize our volunteers who do a lot of great work and put in a lot of hours to everything from building the ice, running our programs, and just making it a great club to be part of. So yeah, big thing is our membership increases. Along with that came revenue increases. We're being sure to save appropriate amount and invest either into the club as needed, but also into our savings for the future. We hope to be supporting again a new facility in the future, and including monetary support for the city and the community when that hopefully comes around the corner. So again, focusing on our investments and savings to make sure we're continuing to be successful in the future. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's
Thank you.
kind of what's going on there, and I'll be happy to see any of you down there. I'll give you a personal lesson if you want, and get you out on the ice. So yeah,
Yeah, well,
season
I'll take
starts
you up on
October. Thanks for having me.
Okay, any questions, council? For Cody? Councilor Jerry?
Thanks, Your Worship. Can you give us a brief on the Bonspiel, how it turned out, and if that's something that will be returning again in the future?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually have increased the amount of Bonspiels that we have, but you're probably referring to the annual Bonspiel that we hold. And that has happened 70 times before. Obviously, there's been a couple breaks in that with the pandemic and whatnot, but yeah, just held our 70th annual Revelstoke Bonspiel. We have 16 teams competing in that, and usually have about 5 that come from out of town. And it went very well. It's a good revenue generator for the club. Of course, through bar sales, not only just the fees. So I think everybody has a good time with that. Be great if we could expand it for more teams, but to get past that 16 team mark, you're usually looking at maybe going to 32, which is obviously a huge jump, but maybe someday we'll get back to there. Yeah, we had good catering from Village Idiot, and lots of great local sponsors, so everything went well. I think we're obviously we're planning to continue that. And along with that, we had, I believe, 3 other smaller Bonspiels, and that included a stick Bonspiel. So if you're not familiar with stick curling, it's kind of like shuffleboard on ice, and it gives people who may not be comfortable doing the traditional slide an opportunity to keep curling. It's much easier on your body. It's easier to pick up if you're new to the game. So stick curling has really taken off, especially for our seniors, and again, just people who may not be comfortable getting down in the hacks anymore. So yeah, definitely going to keep doing Bonspiels and looking at how we can expand it too.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. Just one last question.
Sure.
You mentioned the increase in growth. Do you expect that to continue to increase, or do you think we have plateaued?
Yeah, so eventually we're going to plateau. Eventually we're just going to hit capacity. What the kind of standard would be 100 members per sheet. So we have 4 sheets of ice. So a full club you could consider as 400 members, which, to think about the amount of work it is right now with 200 members to get to 400, again, that's going to be a big jump, but that is what they say is a full club. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's 400 people that curl every week, on the same night every week. But there's, again, different ways you can run programs with, we start to accept some larger teams that kind of sub in and out. We had a team that had 10 people sign up just because it's tough to commit to play every week. So, we can expand our membership in different ways, not just somebody curling every week throughout the winter. And again, looking at maybe shorter league terms. It's pretty popular now to do kind of like a 6-week league kind of thing, just lower commitment so people can get into the game and be comfortable without having to commit and show up every week. As you know, that's sometimes a challenge. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's all great stuff. It's great to hear, and congrats on the growth.
Thanks. And just appreciate the chance to talk to you guys about it. And again, hope to see you out there. So,
Thanks,
thank you.
Cody. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Nato. All right, we are going to move on. So we have nothing further on our committee of the whole. So, Councilor Lucia, we are going to adjourn this and go right into a special council meeting to adopt one bylaw. So if you could just stay on, we're not going to switch or do anything, and just move forward.
Okay.
So I'm going to call for termination of the committee of the whole. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councilor Staples, seconded by Councilor Devlin. All in favor? Motion's carried. Committee of the whole is now terminated. I'm going to call our special council meeting of June 13th, 2024 to order with adoption of the agenda. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councilor Orlando, Councilor Devlin, all in favor? Motion's carried. We're going to move right on to 4A bylaws, water regulation amendment bylaw 2384. We have just passed. We've done first, second, and third reading. This is adoption. Does someone want to put that motion on the table for me, please? Councilor Devlin.
I move the water regulations amendment bylaw number 2384 be adopted.
Second for the motion, please. Councilor Staples. Discussion on adoption. Seeing none, I will call a question. All those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. This bylaw has been adopted fully. I'm now going to call for termination of the meeting. Councilor Staples, Councilor Orlando, all in favor? Motion's carried. We're done for the day. Thank
New
you.
record of the quickest council meeting we've ever had.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Jerry,
Beckler. We have
I was gonna have
finished.
the curling club if they needed a
Yeah.